The elevator lurched to a grinding halt between the 23rd and 24th floors, and Sarah Chen's perfectly orchestrated day shattered like glass. She was Vanguard Industries' youngest CEO, a woman who'd clawed her way from a cramped Brooklyn apartment to the executive suite through sheer willpower and 90-hour weeks. She didn't have time for mechanical failures. The board meeting started in 7 minutes and the Henderson deal worth $42 million hung in the balance. Her fingers flew to her phone. No signal, of course. Great, she muttered, jabbing the emergency button with more force than necessary. That's when she noticed him. A man in his early 30s slouched in the corner, wearing a rumpled button-down with a small stain on the collar. His eyes were closed, head tilted back against the elevator wall, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. At his feet sat a crumpled gift bag decorated with cartoon dinosaurs, the kind you'd find at a dollar store. Sarah's irritation flared. She'd been alone in the elevator when it started moving. He must have slipped in at the last second. Probably one of the maintenance staff or someone from accounting. Just her luck to be trapped with someone who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The emergency phone crackled to life. This is building security. We're aware of the situation. The repair team is en route, but there's been an accident on the expressway. Could be anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours. 2 hours. Sarah's chest tightened. She thought of the Henderson executives waiting in the conference room. Of Marcus from the board, who was already looking for any excuse to question her leadership. At 29, she was too young, too female, too everything for the old guard to accept easily. They said 2 hours, she announced, her voice sharp. Just so you know. The man's eyes opened slowly. They were brown and kind, but shadowed with a weariness that went bone deep. Thanks for the update. His voice was like he'd been talking for hours, or maybe hadn't slept in days. Silence stretched between them. Sarah paced the small space, firing off text messages that refused to send, trying to will the elevator into motion through sheer force of personality. It had always worked before. Why not now? You should probably save your battery, the man said quietly. In case we need it later. Sarah stopped mid-stride. I'm trying to salvage a multi-million-dollar deal that's falling apart as we speak, right? He didn't sound impressed or intimidated, just tired. I'm Jake, by the way. She didn't respond, didn't ask his last name or what floor he worked on. Instead, she returned to her phone, refreshing her email repeatedly as if the signal might magically return. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The elevator's air grew stale and warm. Sarah shed her blazer, careful to keep her silk blouse from wrinkling. She noticed Jake hadn't moved, hadn't complained, hadn't done anything except sit there with his eyes closed and his hand resting protectively on that ridiculous dinosaur gift bag. Is that for your kid? The question escaped before she could stop it. Jake's eyes opened again, and this time something flickered there. Pain, love, exhaustion, all tangled together. Yeah, my daughter Emma, she turned 6 today. Oh. Sarah felt an unexpected pang. And you're stuck here. Story of my life lately. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I promised her I'd be at her birthday party at 4 o'clock. It's at my ex-wife's place. Emma's been talking about it for weeks. She wants a dinosaur theme because she's decided she's going to be a paleontologist. His voice softened with pride. She's got her whole life planned out already. Sarah glanced at her watch. 3:15. You might still make it. Maybe. Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But I've broken a lot of promises lately. Since the divorce, since I had to take the night shift at the warehouse to make rent. Emma started looking at me different, like she's not sure she can count on me anymore. He picked up the gift bag. Peering inside. I got her this stuffed triceratops. It's not much, but I saved for 3 weeks. The fancy ones were $80 at the toy store downtown. This one was $12 at the discount place. But I thought. He stopped shaking his head. Sorry, you don't need to hear this. But Sarah found herself listening in a way she hadn't listened to anyone in years. Not since she'd made the decision to put career before everything else. Before relationships, before friendships, before the version of herself who used to volunteer at homeless shelters and remember people's birthdays. I'm sure she'll love it, Sarah heard herself say. Jake smiled sadly. She will. Emma's good like that. Grateful for everything. But I see how she looks at the other kids with their expensive toys. Their parents who show up on time to school events. I'm doing my best, but my best keeps falling short. The words hit Sarah harder than they should have. She thought about her own father, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep their family afloat after her mother died. She remembered being Emma's age, watching him stumble through the door at midnight, so exhausted he could barely stand. She'd understood even then what love looked like. Not flowers and fancy dinners, but sacrifice worn into the lines of someone's face. When had she forgotten that you're there? Sarah said quietly. That's what matters. Am I? Jake's voice cracked. I'm working 60-hour weeks. I see her every other weekend if I'm lucky, her stepdad. He's the one teaching her to ride a bike, helping with homework. I'm just the guy who shows up exhausted with a cheap stuffed animal. Sarah sat down on the elevator floor across from him, her designer skirt pooling around her. She hadn't sat on a floor in years. You're her father. That's not nothing. They talked then. Really talked. Jake told her about Emma's obsession with dinosaurs, about how she'd made him watch the same documentary 17 times and could pronounce Pachycephalosaurus perfectly, about the job he'd lost when he had to leave work early too many times for Emma's doctor appointments. She had asthma and the attacks came without warning, about the choice between paying for her medication and making rent on time. And Sarah found herself sharing too about the childhood Thanksgivings when dinner was donated cans from the food bank, about her father's callous hands and proud smile when she got her scholarship to Columbia. About the promotions she'd sacrificed, relationships for the friends she'd lost to ambition. The gnawing fear that she'd climbed so high she'd forgotten what the ground felt like. Why are you telling me this? Jake asked, not unkindly. Sarah looked at the gift bag between them. I don't know. Maybe because I've forgotten what it's like to care about something more than a profit margin. The elevator phone crackled. Repair teams arrived. 15 minutes, folks. Jake checked his watch. 3:45. His face fell. I'm not going to make it. Even if we get out right now, traffic across town. Sarah watched him deflate. Watched a father's heartbreak over a 6-year-old's birthday party. And something inside her shifted tectonic plates of her carefully constructed life, grinding into a new configuration. What's your ex-wife's address? Jake blinked. What? Her address? Give it to me. I don't understand. My driver's downstairs. When we get out, you're taking my car. Sarah was already planning, her CEO brain warring back to life, but pointed in a new direction. Marcus can handle the Henderson meeting for once, and this. She pulled out her phone, opened her contacts. I have a friend who runs a toy company. Tell me about Emma for the next 12 minutes. While they waited for rescue, Jake described his daughter, her gap-toothed smile, her determination to save every earthworm she found on the sidewalk. Her dream of discovering a new dinosaur species, and Sarah made calls that wouldn't go through until the elevator moved. But she made them anyway, leaving voicemails that would change everything. When the doors finally opened at 4:03, Sarah's driver was waiting. She pressed her car keys into Jake's hand despite his protests. Go, she commanded. And Jake, you're not falling short. You're exactly the father she needs. She watched him run for the lobby. The dinosaur gift bag clutched to his chest and felt something warm unfurl in her chest. Something she'd buried under spreadsheets and board meetings and the relentless climb upward. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the office to find Marcus smugly announcing that Henderson had walked. But there was an email waiting from a Children's Hospital Foundation looking for a new board member and another from the toy company owner confirming a delivery to Jake's address, a premium dinosaur collection for Emma, marked from Dad. Sarah smiled and opened a new document. She had calls to make, priorities to rearrange, and a life to remember how to live, one small act of humanity at a time. The elevator doors had closed on one version of herself and opened on another, and she was finally going in the right direction.